from Serenidad Consulting in the Peace Ranch. Today, Sunday, I'm going to be talking with you about living life with love and without force. In my first book, No Boxing Allowed, I talk very much about personal power and how to recognize it, harness it, and then use it in very positive ways. And in that book, I also give examples about the negative applications of personal power and how destructive that can be. So I encourage people to use their personal power in very positive ways. Likewise, with positional power, when we have that to complement our personal power, we can actually affect the most enormous positive change. And each of us at some point in our lives will have a position that we can couple with our own personal power to produce really great outcomes. What I've witnessed this week, and I've observed a number of people, both inside and outside of a work environment, in relationships, and what I've noticed is the power and control struggles. And that's one of the things that consistently through my books I talk about. That is our fundamental biggest challenge, is to deal with and work our way out of the power and control struggles that we find ourselves in. And usually where they're rooted in is somebody not understanding their personal power and using it in the wrong way. Now, in command and control organisations, and in my first book, I talk about the effective use of power in C2 organisations, you find that people tend to be very, very pushy. That's probably the best way I can describe it, where they're being forceful, where they're being sometimes aggressive as distinct from assertive. And what that can do is place people who are more calm in their demeanour. It can actually place people in a defensive posture as soon as that person opens their mouth. So as an individual, it's really important for you to understand inside how what you say and what you do projects out. Many years ago, I had someone very close to me, one of my family, actually identify that I don't necessarily understand the implications of my personal power. And they gave a particular example, and it sort of connects with something that one of my work colleagues said about 25 years ago. When I stand and I speak, particularly in front of large groups, I have a very strong presence. And what I've learned to do, because I know my personal power is very well harnessed, when I'm passionate about something, when I project and I'm around people, it can actually send out quite significant waves of energy. And I'm now more mindful of that, because I didn't realize, whilst I am very acutely aware of my power and what I need to do to make that only positive power, my channeling of it at times was in such great volumes that it's probably the best analogy is like a shockwave. When I would say something, it would actually send shockwaves around that I wasn't aware of. Other people felt the impact of what I'd said, but I didn't know that what I had said had projected out so passionately and with such energy that it impacted a lot of people. So I've learned a lot myself about my personal power, and when I combine that with positional power is when I'm able to really make sure that my tone and my delivery is the best that it can possibly be. There are times in life where we may not feel like we're being heard. And I saw a scenario occur a few days ago in a work environment where somebody came into a conversation, sat and interrupted that conversation. Now that is a perfect example of them being selfish and using their personal power inappropriately. But that's that person's modus operandi. They like to do it. They like to be able to command the audience. And so unless they recognize that that's a bad use of their personal power, then they're not going to change. Other people will make snide remarks and cutting remarks and not respect the abilities of people around them. That's another way for people to use their power inappropriately. But fundamentally it comes back to power and the force associated with living life. And I talk in my second book, No Boxing Allowed sequel, which is From PMS to PMA. I have a chapter in part 2 that it talks all about living life with love and without force. Because ultimately force, if we're having to force things, then we're not actually getting a best outcome. We're pushing for something that might only be good for ourselves, but that may not be good for others. I'm just going to read a little bit out of this chapter so that you can understand the context. The most critical aspect in the success of relationships are power and balance. Achieving balance is like walking a fine line at times, a bit like a trapeze high wire. Our relationships may be constantly confronted with disappointments, misunderstandings, losses and betrayals at the same time as we're managing major wins and successes, achieving clarity of thinking and action, realizing personal growth and simplifying our lives. No wonder it's challenging to find balance. While our bodies work to maintain homeostasis, our hearts and minds are working overtime to keep decision making and risk management as accurate as possible. Without a more rounded understanding of our own personal power and how to use that more effectively to achieve a win-win, and our partners in business and home doing the same, the less easily we'll manage any imbalances. The more out of balance a relationship, the more unequal the expectations, and/or the more determined one is to have power over the other, then the more rocky the outcome and that path will be. Personal power, when used wisely and to the best of our ability, without underhanded motives and hidden agendas, will not always give us what we want, but it will open our eyes to a different way of relating. Whilst ever we feel that our partners in business and pleasure are manipulating an outcome that's not of mutual benefit, or things are done in a way that's not open and transparent, then the negative forces will work against you to achieve the outcome sought. This week, I want you to, if you have an opportunity, take a moment to pause before you speak and think about, how am I delivering this particular few words or this sentence or conference paper or whatever it might be, and think about how you're going to deliver that is founded in calm. And the best tip that I can give you is to stand quietly, center yourself, slow your breathing, and actually relax everything about your body. So relax your muscles in your face, relax your hands, relax your thinking, and let what you're delivering come from your core, come from your solar plexus region, because that is where we as energetic bodies have our center. It's in our solar plexus region. When we have that core strength, and we have it physically, and we build on emotionally and mentally and spiritually, that's when we're able to harness and deliver our personal power in the most effective and positive way. I hope you have a really great week going forward. I've not found a terribly cozy place, but I've certainly found a pretty place to have this video today, and I thank you for listening. See you next weekend. Bye for now.